What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Beyond Ordinary podcast, where we connect with great people doing great things to inspire you to do the same. I have another great guest with me today. He's been killing it in real estate. My man, Kyle Sterling. How you doing today, good man?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on the podcast. So I just wanted to talk to you about real estate as well as, your Howard experience. Kyle's also a Howard University alum, class of 2016, I believe,
2016,
right?
yep.
2016, yes, sir. So coming up on that 10-year, man, I can't believe I'm about to be 5 years in. So let's take it all the way back from the beginning. Like, you started at Howard University. I know you worked corporate. What made you want to get into real estate?
Yeah, I graduated from Howard in 2016, and then I worked corporate for 2.5 years. Absolutely hated it. It was not for me. I think the company and the role wasn't the best fit for me, but I wanted to explore entrepreneur routes. And so in 2018, I had purchased my first home, and just going through that process was so interesting, and that it really intrigued me more about potentially getting my own real estate license. And at the time, I thought I was just going to be an investor that was licensed, but found enjoyment in helping other people go through the home buying process. And so that is what allowed me to transition to being a full-time real estate agent.
Okay, cool. So you were in corporate, then you transitioned to real estate. So I know you went to Howard University, a school of business, and everybody says SOB money gang. How did SOB prepare you for not necessarily corporate, but for real estate and having your own business, if it did at all?
It did. It helped me out a lot. I don't think I wouldn't say that specific classes helped me to get through my professional career, but what did help me was just working hard, like creating the muscle to work hard. I think that folks underestimate how much you have to, especially as an entrepreneur, you don't have anyone telling you you're doing right or wrong. You don't have someone tell you have to be here at 8 o'clock and you have to stay here to 5 p.m. That is a muscle and a discipline that you have to create within yourself. And so I think that being in the School of Business or being in any college at Howard, but it really challenged you to you can go to parties, you can go to this social event, you can go to the punch out, or you can choose to go to the library or the iLab and study and do your work. And as an entrepreneur, I can stay in bed. I can go to this happy hour, or I can choose to stay in the office and work. And so I think that that muscle of discipline is something that School of Business taught me. I think it also taught me how to network. It was really big on teaching us how to secure jobs and how to secure relationships. Real estate is all about relationships. And so my ability to have a conversation with someone with intentionality, not just a conversation to hear each other speak, but ask probing questions and ask open-ended that forces someone to answer so I can get the information that I want out of them. Those are things that I learned in the School of Business that I use today to help with my career.
Yeah, definitely. Relationships is everything. So yeah, I have actually a younger sister that goes to Howard University right now, and I told her so many times, look, you need to leave Howard University with some connections. Yeah, the degree is cool, but to me, it's if you leave Howard with no connections and you kind of folded, because that's pretty much what the school is built its legacy off of. It's pretty much connections and just dope people that are out there that, come out of Howard University. That's pretty much how, we're sitting here today, because I'm a Howard University alum, you're a Howard University alum. We're both in the General Andrews Social Club. So we just have those connections, and it just makes it easier to just connect with people. And then I know you're also in, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And I just want to know how did that help you, not necessarily on the yard, but post yard? How has that relationship been?
It's been amazing. One of my biggest blessings of Howard was Z chapter, Kappa Alpha Psi, in particular my line brothers. I don't think that the Brotherhood and the network and all those things are really cool, but to have 10 individuals who are going through every phase of life with you, whether it's personal, professional. 2 of my line brothers were Forbes 30 under 30. Multiple of my line brothers are entrepreneurs. Not a lot, but multiple of my line brothers are going to grad school or in grad school. And these are all Black men who you were just 10 years ago trying to figure out if we can even afford Popeyes or if we can afford Pizza Hut. And all putting in for one Papa John's pizza. And so now you're in a place where we're making investments together. And we're helping each other out because one line brother's in finance, another line brother's an entrepreneur, and how should I reinvest my money in? And giving each other advices on how should we propose to our significant others. And like you see the matriculation of how each of you all are evolving through life. And so to have like that soundboard of individuals who've seen you fail and try again and fail again and try again, but can celebrate your successes. Because oftentimes a lot of people only see the highlights, but to have those people in your corner who see everything and support you through all of those different obstacles and the wins too, it's like it's an undescribable blessing.
Definitely. Like I see so many people online that always bash like fraternities and say, "Oh yeah, you paid for friends and stuff like that." But I don't even see it that way. It truly is a brotherhood. People see you at your highs, people see you at your lows, and we're just there to support one another. You know what I mean? So,
And I don't think that you pay for friends, but to a certain extent, you pay for a caliber of friend.
yeah,
And so
exactly.
like these individuals are all individuals who are willing to invest in themselves and pay $1,000 to invest in themselves. And so when you're willing to pay X amount of money to invest in yourselves, you probably come with a certain caliber to you. And so to a certain extent, did I pay for friends? No. But did I pay for a network? Yes. And did that network turn into a caliber of individuals that are consistently pushing me or opening doors for me who can reinvest and buy a house because they can afford to buy a house because they're hard workers? Yes. So I do think that when folks say, oh, I'm not paying for relationships, to a certain extent, you should pay for relationships because if other people are willing to pay, one, they have the funds to do it. And then two, they're probably investing in themselves and they're going to continue to invest in themselves outside of that fraternity or organization. But that can be a network that can help you elevate to the next level as well.
That's such a major key that you just said, that people, it's the caliber of friends and they're willing to invest in themselves, because so many people are just not willing to invest. They're scared to invest in themselves, and just being able to be around people who are like-minded individuals who are able to invest in themselves, it just takes you so much further. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that about investing in themselves, because I'm really big on investing in myself. I'm always going to invest in myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I'm not willing to invest in myself, like who is? You know what I mean? And then Kyle, like you have so many accolades to your name in real estate. You have the Keller Williams Capital Properties Rookie of the Year. You have top 1,000 agents in the DC metro area. Like how were you able to climb the ranks of real estate so fast?
The first thing is just like you said, investing in yourself. Like ever since I've been in real estate, I've had a coach. So I pay monthly to speak to whoever the individual is at the time for just 30 minutes a week. And I pay a good amount of money to have those conversations with individuals who have accomplished the goals that I wish to accomplish and who have created the pathway that I want to walk through. And so like, I am not someone who's trying to create this new phenomenon around real estate. I'm very much, if you show me the will, I'ma just redo it. And I may add my own twist to it to make it personal to me, to make it enjoyable to me. But like, if you give me a blueprint, I'm going to read the blueprint and execute the blueprint. And so I had mentors. I have mentors. I have coaches. Like I have what I call like my board of directors, which are individuals from different facets of life, whether it be my financial advisor, my spiritual advisor, therapists, mentors, etc., who I go to help guide my decisions to allow me to execute at my best level, my highest level. And I've done that in real estate. I surrounded myself around the best individuals who were doing things at a high level. And going into the business, I didn't even know what success looked like. So to like some agents, a new agent, success for them is just selling 12 houses a year. For me, success was selling 50 homes a year and 60 homes a year. But that's because I surrounded myself around people who were selling 60 homes a year. Some people are like, yo, as long as I make $200,000, I'm happy. For me, I'm like, I want to make $500,000 plus a year. And so like when you have higher goals, you may not hit them, but you land at a higher place, and that exposes you to the accolades that come with it. trying to reach for the higher goals.
So you touched on something really key. You surrounded yourself with mentors and like-minded individuals that also were trying to, strive for that high level of success. So were you able to cultivate those relationships early on when you were just getting started,
Multiple things like showing interest and being engaged. And so luckily I got into real estate prior to COVID. So
Hmm.
folks, high producing agents would come to the office. So I would come to the office and I would just have conversations with them. I would try to be of value. So like if they would ask like, hey, Kai, can you drop this off at one of my listings? I would drop off some pamphlets at a listing. Or hey, Kai, can you show my clients a few properties? I would show their clients a few properties. Like came with value. But then I also came with questions. And so like I'm also asking like, what are you doing? How do you do it? Can I take you out for lunch? Can I take you for coffee? Can I do whatever? And everybody wants to be the top producer's mentee or be connected to the top producer. And so like, and the reality is we're all human. So we only have so much capacity to give to other people and while still trying to give to our clients. Because being a realtor is like you just give of yourself all the time because you have to, it's a relationship, it's a people relationship type of profession. And so you have to, when you're trying to get like mentors who are top producers, they don't have the capacity all the time to just sit around and answer 1,000 questions for every person. So it's like, what can I get out of you? And that's what it was me, was showing properties for them, dropping stuff off for them, like adding value in their lives so they'll be more willing to pour into me.
Yeah, and you touched on something that I was thinking as you were talking, is like adding value. A lot of people don't necessarily go into certain situations and they don't really have much to offer on the table. And when you are just starting off, you have to lead with value and try to just make yourself an asset because you're just starting out. And so that's why I asked you that question as somebody who is new in the game. How can you add value?
Yeah.
So that was a great one. And then you said you started before COVID. So I just wanted to know, how was that transition once COVID happened? Like, how did you see the market shift once, COVID happened?
So when, like, for example, when I would meet new clients prior to COVID, they all came in person to my office. I can't even tell you the last time now I've met a client at my office. Like, that's just
Really?
not a thing anymore. Like, all
Wow.
of my introductory meetings are over Zoom or a phone call, where before COVID, I couldn't even fathom the idea of not sitting down with you in person and giving you 10 pieces of paper and walking you through it. Like that to me was like, this is the biggest purchase of your life. So you have to sit down in person with me and look me in my eyes so I can tell you that this is how you're going to go through it. But COVID changed that. And now I'm actually more productive because I can meet with more people because I'm just clicking from one Zoom link to the next Zoom link. So COVID allowed my productivity to go up. Of course, when COVID-19 first happened, federal government significantly dropped interest rates to keep the market afloat with everyone so scared with the virus. And so with that, an influx of buyers came into the market looking to purchase a home to take advantage of the 2.8, 3.1 interest rates which were historical lows that we've never seen before and probably won't see again in our lifetime. So from a real estate market perspective, I saw an influx of business happen that I've never seen before because of the significantly low interest rates. And then it really was just like adjusting, like what does it look like to have a business that's very relationship based and very personal and being in somebody's face, to now I got to social distance and not go into the properties with you and not meet you in person for our initial meeting. Just kind of like transitioning your business structure to meet the moment.
So yeah, how was that trying to build relationships online? Did you find it easier or harder, or?
It wasn't harder. No, it wasn't harder. I think that because while my industry was changing, everybody's industry was changing. We all were doing Zooms. You know what I'm saying? Like you probably weren't doing nearly as many Zoom calls prior to COVID, but that became the norm. And so I think that had it been a disease that was only impacting realtors and we were the only ones that had to transition to a virtual business transaction or a virtual way of conducting business, it would have been challenging. But because everybody, your doctor's appointments were virtual, your meetings at work were virtual, your conversations with your families were virtual, I think this was just another aspect of your life that became virtual and people were cool to adapt to it because it was our norm in every facet of our life.
For sure. And then in terms of like real estate investing, you are an investor yourself. Like you have, multiple properties and stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah. So can you talk about like how that journey has been? How did you get started with real estate investing?
It's been really dope. So I bought my first property in 2018. It was a single family home in DC. And once again, those friends that I paid for, aka my line brothers, I made them live with me and they rented out rooms and they were essentially covering the mortgage. And we did that for 2 years. They ended up moving out and moving to another state, and I ended up buying another property. And so I continued to rent out that property and bought another property and turned that into a duplex, which is a 2 unit property. And I rent out the basement of that to help cover the mortgage of the new house. I just was Airbnb in the last property, but DC shut me down. And so, and not because of anything I did, it's because of like their laws around the property being your primary residence versus your secondary residence. And it's a long story. Nonetheless, so now I'm in the process of re-renting out that property, but then we just closed on a 5 unit in DC with one of my fraternity brothers and a few other investors. And so essentially it's been a really dope journey to kind of like build out this real estate portfolio throughout DC, especially as a realtor, because a lot of my clients are investors or aspiring to be investors. So like I'm helping other people increase their real estate portfolio as I'm also doing the same. And so it's like I'm getting firsthand experience on how to invest in real estate in the area that I'm also selling real estate.
Got you. And then are you the property manager for all these properties too, or are you outsourcing that?
For the single family duplex, yes. For the 5 unit, no.
Got you. And then do you recommend people like get a property manager or be their own property manager? I know that costs money, but like, do you see that that's a return on your investment by having one?
The great answer is always it depends. And so the rule of thumb is typically if you live more than 20 minutes away from a property, with my rule of thumb, and I think I read it in the book, I can't remember which one though. If you live more than 20
Mhm.
minutes away from a property, you probably shouldn't be your own property manager. Simply because like if things go wrong, it now becomes a hassle for you to get to the property, etc. And so do I think that people should hire a property manager? It's not a one size fit all answer. If you have the bandwidth to handle tenants, then absolutely. I think in today's time, there's so many technology capabilities where the tenant can apply online. You can accept them
Facts.
online. They can put their maintenance request in online. You can collect rent online all through one portal. And so these technology platforms can be the intersection between you and the tenant where you don't have to talk to the tenant every day. And
Facts.
then you can then just get a contractor to go out to the property and you never have to have a conversation with the tenant over the phone, not a contractor like plumber or electrician, whatever. And so in that case, you probably don't need a property manager. You can save the funds. But I think that for like the 5 unit property where all our tenants are government assistant tenant, Section 8.
Mhm.
And now you're dealing with, not only you dealing with the tenant, but you have to deal with their agencies that are funding their living. It's a lot of different intricacies that's a lot more hands on. I don't have the capacity to handle that. And so in that scenario, absolutely you need a property manager. And the more tenants you have, then you will need property managers because it's one thing to manage 2 or 3 tenants. It's another thing to manage 8 to 10 tenants.
And then how have you found yourself managing, the property that you do have as well as having your realtor business as well? How are you juggling both?
Time management. Like you have to, it's a business. So like when I was doing Airbnb, that's a separate business from being a realtor. And so like when I'm going to make time to make sure that Airbnbs have been flipped so that the next guest can come, and do I have the capacity to answer the call and make sure that if something goes wrong, do I have the resources to make sure we can fix it quickly because somebody's on vacation and they're probably 72 hours to 96 hours, and should they deal with a broken shower on their vacation. And so like you have to be able to, one, be prepared for the worst, so have the resources on hand, but then two, time management. I have meetings with my other investors for my 5 unit sitting on my calendar, just like I have meetings with my clients. Like everything is, if it's not on the calendar, it won't happen. And so you just got to make sure it's time managed.
For sure. And I want to also get your opinion on first time homebuyer programs. What do you think about those? Those beneficial or what?
Yeah, I mean, they are. You just have not every single one. Some are a little bit more predatory than others because a lot of the first time home buyer grants are marketing tactics to get folks to get a mortgage with a specific bank. And so, for example, you may have a first time home buyer grant that says like, we'll give you $10,000 and you don't have to pay it back. But if you don't use the first time home buyer grant, your interest rate may be 5%. But using the first time home buyer grant and getting the $10,000 free, your interest rate is now 6.5%. And your monthly payment is an additional $800 a month. And so you save $10,000, but you're paying $800 a month. So after the first year and maybe 3 months, you paid that $10,000 back in interest. You get what I'm saying? And now for the remaining 28 years, you paid an additional $800 just to save $10,000 up front. Was that a good grant program? And so I think that I tell my clients, like, everything that's free ain't free. Everything that glitter isn't gold. So like, you gotta make sure you do your due diligence and do the math and make sure you're working with a realtor who knows how to also do the math and do the due diligence to tell you like, that is not a good grant program. Now, there are some grant programs that will give you $10,000 and give you the same interest rate if you don't use the $10,000 and you don't have to pay it back. That's an excellent grant program, but you just got to make sure that you are aligning yourself with the programs and doing the research to ensure that you're not in a program that's just like really trying to lure you in and end up make you spend more money than you would have spent had you not used it.
Exactly. And I think people like kind of fall for that when they see like, oh, you could get like $10,000 off up front and stuff like that, because they see that as like cash today, but they don't see the long term of what you were saying in terms of you're going to have to pay $800 more over the next, I don't know, like 20, something like that. So getting with the realtor that has that long-term vision and can really break that down to you is major key.
Yeah.
And then what's something that you would have known before getting into real estate investing?
Rephrase the question.
Like, is there anything that before you started getting into real estate, right? Something that you wish you knew beforehand or something that you learned along the way?
Okay, something that I wish I've known before getting into real estate?
Exactly. It could be something like just a tip or a trick that you learned along your journey that was like, damn, if I had known this, maybe like year one, I'd be significantly further on in your career.
This may sound cliche, but I don't think, unless I'm just having a moment right now, I don't really have too many moments where I have gone through this experience and said, I wish I would have known that before. Like, I have subscribed to the mindset that I'm failing forward every day. So every day I may make a mistake, but I made that mistake and I learned from it. And so maybe there's books that I maybe could have read that could have made me better. Like, I'm reading a book right now that's called Exactly What to Say. And this is basic stuff that I probably should have known 6 years ago. And I probably would have sold an extra couple homes had I known it to read the book. But the reality is, like, as an entrepreneur, it's so much shit that comes up every day, and you're gonna make just as many people proud of you as you're gonna disappoint people. And so I don't think that there's something that I wish I would have known going into it that I now know. I think that when I learned it, it was the right moment for me to learn it, because what I would have probably done is learn too much too soon and scared myself or steered away from certain opportunities because I didn't want to learn the hard way. And so I think I'm really cool with, I have read a few books. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I talked to a few mentors. I quit my job and I was like, let's try it. And I'm cool with that journey. Like, I think we try to over prepare for stuff and then don't do anything, and we remain stagnant because we're in the preparation phase. So I rather subscribe to just the fail forward, and hopefully I don't make a mistake that I can't come back from. But one of my mentors told me, like, hey, at the time I was buying my next property, it was like, you're only 28. Even if you have to file for bankruptcy, it only stays on your credit for 2 years and you'll still be under 30. I didn't even buy my first house until I'm 33 and I have 10 houses now. And so, like, when you put things into perspective, like, damn, I can file for bankruptcy, lose it all, still bounce back and still own 10 properties. Like, it changes your mindset around the idea of learn everything right now. Like, just put yourself out there. I mean, make calculated decisions, but at the end of the day, you just gotta let life teach you, and you fail forward, pray, and you pray for the best, and you keep moving.
Yeah, I like that, man. How you said you like to fail forward. That's a good phrase, and just being able to be open and trying things and understand that you're young, I'm even younger, and that there's, as long as you make quote unquote mistake, because I don't even really believe in mistakes, because it's really just a lesson. Like there are so many like mistakes and lessons I learned back when I started my entrepreneurship journey in 2020, 2021, that I'm grateful for now. Lost hella money and stuff like that. But it's like, hey, like at the end of the day, I see it as it's just money. You can always
Yeah.
get more money. Like money will always come and money will always go. So that's another reason why me personally, I always invest in myself. So that's dope that, you are, wanting to fail forward. And I didn't even know bankruptcy only stayed on your credit for 2 years. I definitely thought it was like 5+ or something like that.
It may be like 3, but it was something very like in the grand scheme of life, I would still be young when the bankruptcy goes away. And so it could be 3. I don't think it's 5, but don't quote me on that. That was just more like an example of quote. But it was one of those things where it's like, if all else fails, like the worst thing that can happen is that you file for bankruptcy. That's the worst thing. And it had to be, because he told me I was still in my 30s. So it had to be maybe 3 years max. But it was like, shit, maybe 4. I don't know. But at the end of the day, he was like, if worst case scenario, you would still be in your 30s and you can bounce back. 20s. You can still be in your 20s and bounce back. And the world would go on. And so it was one of those things that really just taught me, like, to the best of your ability, make calculated decisions. But then when you can't calculate anymore, just trust in yourself and you'll figure it out.
Amen to that. So a common reason that people don't get into real estate is because it's not as liquid as like stocks and, other investments. So what would you say to people that don't want to get into real estate for that reason?
Like real estate investing or being a realtor?
Investing.
It's not as liquid as stocks. It depends. I mean, like, it depends on what your profit margin is from your house. Like, it's consistent. So say you're making $600 a month off of a property, or you're making $4,000 or $5,000 a month off of your real estate investment. That's pretty liquid to me. And then I think the other thing is, I don't think it's a one or the other. Like, I think that you should have both. There are going to be times where the stock market is down. And typically when the stock market is down, then it impacts interest rates within, because the reason why interest rates went down was because the stock market had plummeted. That was the best time to get an asset that now allowed you to have a good amount of equity in it, and you have a low monthly payment, so you have a profit margin when you're renting the property out. And so I don't think it's one of those things where you look at it as, I'm only going to do real estate because this is the safer bet, or only going to do stock because stock is more liquid. It's how do I put my hand in both? So when one is up and the other one's down, I'm still stabilized, and vice versa. I prefer real estate, one, because I know real estate. I don't know stock. And so, and I don't really have an interest in learning about it. Like, there's so many facets of real estate that I'm still learning and enjoying, that I don't have the interest to do stock right now. And I think that the long-term strategy of being able to pay something off, that asset appreciating, and then I can still rent it out and make cash flow until forever, that is something that is attractive to me. To someone else, making money quicker by overnight or whatever is more attractive to them. It just depends on your appetite, your capacity. But I think in the grand scheme of things, your goal is to try to diversify and have a little bit of money in the stock market as well as in the real estate world, and so on.
Yeah, you said something that was pretty key, is that you said that you're not going to get to stocks or crypto and stuff like that because real estate. Yeah, that was my problem, is that I didn't like learn one thing. I tried to do so many things, and I was basically the jack of all trades, the master of none. But one thing that you did say is you were talking about the profit margins in real estate, and it depends on like your margins and stuff like that. So what are some things to maximize those profit margins when investing in real estate?
Well, the first thing is just you calculate your profit margins before you own the asset. So like, you determine before you purchase the property, okay, if I purchase at X amount, this would make my monthly payment this amount to pay off the property. How much can I make off this property on a monthly basis? And does that allow me to create enough of a safety net for repairs and property managers or marketing and whatever else you need for that property to be successful? And so a good deal doesn't happen after you own the property and you transform it. A good deal happens when, at the point that you identify the property as something you potentially want to purchase, and you already have your profit strategy and your exit strategy at the acquisition point. And so it's not a lot to it. You really just want to know, like, what expenses am I going into purchasing the property? Are there any repairs I need to make? What's my monthly payment going to be? And then what is the monthly potential for revenue? Whether that be Section 8 rents, whether that be Airbnb, whether that be market rent, like, knowing. And we have the internet, so all that information is like readily accessible, and then you determine if that's a good enough profit for what you're trying to accomplish, and you pull the trigger.
I know that things come up and stuff like vacancies, and so that's something that, I mean, I guess you can account for, but sometimes vacancies are longer than others. So like, how do you handle vacancies when you do have them?
So, I mean, I anticipate like 3 months of vacancy at a given time. And then you want to know, like, it's like DC is very pro tenant. So it's a tenant friendly jurisdiction. And so what
What
that
does that
means
mean?
is
Oh, there you go.
that the government will protect the tenant before they protect the landlord. So if you're trying to evict a tenant, they're going to be a lot more lenient to the tenant and a lot more forceful to the landlord as to why you're trying to evict this tenant. Do you have the proof? What can you do to not evict the tenant? What ways have you worked with the tenant to ensure that the tenant can be successful in your property? Like, they take you through all these steps and nuances. That process can take 3 to 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And so if you're an owner looking to be a landlord in DC, you need to make sure that you have enough liquidity that if you have a delinquent tenant and you have to go through the process of eviction, that you can afford to pay the mortgage payments on that property for 3 to 6 months. You know what I'm saying? And so when you think about, like, you talk about vacancies, and the property may not be vacant, but it still may not be cash flowing. And or if you buy a multi-unit, if I do have one vacant unit or a tenant or a unit that I'm going through an eviction process that may take 3 to 6 months, and it's a 4-unit property, can I still cover my mortgage with just the other 3 rents or just 2 of the 4 rents? So those are the questions that you have to ask yourself to ensure that you're not putting yourself in a predicament where I have to carry my mortgage at my current house, carry the mortgage here, and I can only do it for 1 month. Because at a minimum it's going to take you 3 months to evict the tenant. So you got to at least have a minimum of 3 months of reserves saved up to be able to carry you through that process as you're trying to go through that eviction. So understanding the laws around how to get rid of a tenant, as well as understanding how long it takes to procure a tenant, and then do you have the liquidity to support both all your assets during those times of vacancy or non-revenue producing months.
And then I think you had mentioned that you have, Section 8 housing. And what I'm about to say could be completely ignorant, but for Section 8, doesn't the government like cover the rent for those tenants?
The government covers a portion.
A portion?
So it doesn't
Okay.
cover 100% of it. The government could potentially only cover 50%.
Okay.
And so it's not that it's 100% guaranteed that the government is covering everything. The government covers a portion of it. But there could be an instance where the government decides that they're not going to pay anymore. Maybe the tenant didn't reapply for Section 8 to get their to continue receiving their government portion. Maybe we just had a situation where the oven wasn't working. And because the oven wasn't working, we weren't even aware. The government stopped paying their portion of the rent because, of course, they have stipulations around they don't want you to be a slum landlord. And so if they have any signs of you being a slum landlord, they'll stop paying their portion of the rent. And so the government is quick to say your housing conditions are not up to code or up to standard. And so they stop paying their portion of the rent. And so it's guaranteed income to a certain extent, but that guaranteed income may not even be the 100% of the rent that you need to cover the bills or that you were anticipating.
Okay. Because in my head, I was thinking that Section 8 should be a no-brainer if they are covering it because it would be guaranteed, That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's not the case. But in certain situations, the government is paying 100% of somebody's rent. But in other cases, they're paying 50, 60, 70, 80. The challenge it comes off as I'm characterizing someone, and that's not my intention, but typically someone that the government who's paying only 50% of the rent, meaning that person does have some type of job and income, they may end up being a better quality tenant than the person that the government is paying 100% of the rent for because they don't have any source of income. They're not doing anything with their life. You know what I'm saying? And so that income is guaranteed, but you may have a greater headache from the quality of the tenant than the person where the rent is not guaranteed. It's a lot more risk on the financial side, but that person may come with maybe a little bit more responsible because they do have a job and a 9 to 5 and something to report to on a consistent basis.
And then for Section, I mean, I'm assuming that for Section 8, you can't necessarily like discriminate against those that are, you know, getting 50% of their income covered compared to the people that are getting 100%, you know? Like, are there rules around
Yeah,
tenants that you can't take?
can't discriminate, especially in DC, on source of income.
Hmm.
So to a certain extent, you can say, like for example, you can say you got to have a certain credit score minimum, or you can say that you got to have a certain income minimum to qualify for this property. But you can't say I only want a person who's getting 50% of Section 8, or I only want a person who's getting 100% of Section 8, because their monthly incomes can be the exact same. Whether
Gotcha.
that person is working and making $2,000 a month, and then the government is subsidizing them with this additional $2,000 a month, their income is $4,000, but the government may be giving this person the full $4,000. The income is the same, so you can't discriminate on the source of the income.
And then what have you, how do I phrase this? Like, what has been a better investment for you, the Section 8 properties or the non-Section 8 properties?
I mean, right now, the Section 8 property is more profitable on a monthly basis, but I thoroughly enjoy my single family home properties too. You know, like the Section 8 property, I have other people who are also decision makers. And my other properties, I'm the only decision maker. You know, and
Okay.
so I can do more to it when I want to do it, how I want to do it. And so for me, I'm gonna keep saying it, it's about having a diverse portfolio. I don't need to have 100 properties that I outright own every single one of them. Like, I appreciate the idea of investing on some properties in a partnership and then owning other properties outright by myself.
And then in terms of the properties that you do own with other people, with other investors, how did you go about making sure that these investors are, you know, credible and stuff like that? Because, you know, business partnerships sometimes could go sour. So how'd you make sure to pick the right people to invest with?
Relationships, and what have you done in the past? What's your teeth in the game? How much are you investing? Because now we all are financially tied to the success of this property. Do you own other properties? Have you done this before? I think those things, I'm a firm believer of always being connected with people who are smarter than you. And so like I would honestly say that in that investment, I was the least experienced when it came to investing in that magnitude of a property. But I also had attributes, was more familiar with what it takes, like the ins and outs of Section 8 in DC and how to set up being a property manager in DC and the laws of DC and what the rent rolls look like and how to restructure properties to increase your rental potential. So like I added value, but I probably had the least experience of acquiring commercial real estate. And so I think that aligning yourself with people that are doing more than you, being the small fish in a big pond, is probably the best route to go.
Yeah, for sure. And that's dope that, you know, we're able to find people that were more senior than you and be able to, I'm sure you've learned so much from them that you could take into your next investment and so on and so forth, and just kind of just stack those skills and stack that knowledge. But hey, man, we're coming towards the end. I just want to ask some final questions. So what advice would you have for people who are wanting to get into real estate investing, as well as what advice would you have to somebody who's a struggling real estate agent?
If you want to get into real estate investment, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, read The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller, hire a realtor who's also an investor, get a mentor who is an investor, and then invest. Like, super simple. Read 2 books, hire the realtor, get a mentor, and spend the money. Like, I wouldn't overthink it. Like, everybody be joining classes. I joined this group. I joined this. By the time you join all that stuff, you aren't going to invest. So like, read 2 books, get a mentor, hire the realtor, and get to moving. What would I say for someone who's a struggling realtor? Stay persistent. Like, I do the same activities every day, whether I'm having a good month or a bad month. I do the same activities. And so like, I'm getting better at the activities that I do on a daily basis. And so the results from my same activities are starting to bear more fruit than what I did when I made 20 phone calls 5 years ago. I probably only got 1 client. When I make 20 phone calls today, I probably get 12 clients. 5 years from now, making those same 20 phone calls, I probably get 19 clients. And so like, stay consistent with your activities. Figure out which activities you enjoy that allow you to produce business and focus on it.
Most definitely. Hey, pal, greatly appreciate you dropping that wisdom, man. Where can the people find you on, all your socials if you want to plug that real quick?
Yeah, on Instagram it's Kyle Sterling, and it's an underscore, maybe at the beginning or the end, but it's Kyle Sterling, maybe underscore. My website is kylesterlingproperties.com, and once you find my Instagram, you can go to my bio if you want to book a consultation or appointment with me and just ask me any questions about purchasing a home, being a realtor, being an investor. You can access my calendar from there. Like I say, just find me on Instagram or go on my website, and either way you can gain access to me.
It was definitely, I'm going to put all that on the screen and in the show notes. Beyond Ordinary podcast. Hope y'all were inspired to be great. Till next time, peace.